I would love to introduce you for a moment, Venerable Robina. I know many of you already probably know the wonderful Venerable Robina. We want to thank her for being such a great friend of Shanti Deva. We're so grateful that she's here this week teaching with us. Her practical and straightforward way of teaching the Buddha Dharma certainly benefited me and so many others. For those who don't know, she has been working full-time for the FPMT organization since her ordination in the late 70s. She's been the editorial director for Wisdom Publications, the editor of Mandala magazine, and the executive director of the Liberation Prison Project. And her work with prisoners has been featured in the documentary films Chasing Buddha and Key to Freedom. She's been a touring teacher of Buddhism, but now her teachings are spread internationally online. Since we've been shut down, I think she's been teaching all over the world, Europe, Australia, all over the US. Is that right, Venerable Robina?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So just hats off.
It's so easy now. Zoom, I just walk to my chair, just the second. I've been in Santa Fe, now I'm in New York.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's so wonderful. So thank you so much for teaching for us and for all of these other centers. So I'd be happy to share the screen for prayers if that's what you'd like to do next.
So tell us, we're going to discuss, I've got my schedule there, but I forgot to look just before I started. What's our topic today?
So today is a guided meditation class. What Mindfulness Meditation Is Not is the title.
Oh, okay, all right. So maybe we'll talk about what it is and what it's not, and then we'll do something as well. Okay, that's a really good point. And how long is our class? 90 minutes or 2 hours or 1 hour?
1 hour.
Okay, fantastic. Good. Okay, let's make the most of this hour. I don't think we need to do a prayer. We'll just have I'll just say the thoughts, and then we'll have those thoughts. It makes it more real for us rather than just saying a Tibetan word without meaning. The tunes are nice, but we'll just, let's just think. Okay, the Lamas always say, set our motivation. And what we would probably say is, what's our purpose? So we've got 1 hour together. What's our purpose? What's our goal? What are we trying to achieve, So we make it the most useful motivation. And that is, we're going to, just for this 1 hour, to listen, to think about, and I'm listening too, I promise, these ideas, these thoughts about this approach to the mind, because meditation is all about being your own therapist, knowing your own mind really intimately and well. This is Buddha's expertise. So we're going to look into this and the techniques, this brilliant psychological, the skillful techniques that enable us to do that job really well, because that's what's beneath the concept of meditation. So we're going to listen to this, to take some practical tools from it, so we can really develop this amazing potential that Buddha says we've all got, which is very encouraging. So that not only that, so we can be of use to others, because we live in this crazy planet together, don't we? So we think that's our motivation. I'll just sing the prayer once in Tibetan, just the sound of it, because the tunes are nice, That expresses those thoughts. Well, no, the first 2 lines, actually, the second 2 lines are just what I expressed. The first 2 lines, for those of us here who think we're already Buddhists, who identify with being Buddhists. So it's reiterating our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings, Sangye charang soke chognamla, jangcho badu dagni kyabsuchi, dagi chönyen gipe sonam ki, drola penche sangye drupa shok. Okay. So, what is mindfulness meditation not? But before I go further, I've got to blow my nose. Please forgive me. Hang on. Okay, well, the first thing that's really interesting about the word in Tibetan for the verb to meditate, it's quite a surprise to us. It takes quite a while to get used to this, because we have such a strong conception of what we think meditation is, The verb is literally the verb to familiarize. So when you sit there listening to the musical theories, what are you doing? It's very obvious. You're familiarizing your mind with the theories, and we call that learning. When you go home and you do your homework, well, you're increasing that process of familiarization, are you not? First intellectually, until eventually it becomes experiential. You can play it on the piano without even looking. That's the process of familiarization. That's what they mean, but in Tibetan, by the word to meditate. But we've got such a interest. First of all, Buddha doesn't own this word. He hasn't got copyright. He's not a creator. He didn't invent this. It's important that we can all say we can use the word meditation. You can make up your own, and there are hundreds of variations. We know that around the world now. But if you want to understand, let's say, the Tibetan approach, and we're discussing that here, which is, of course, Buddha's approach, but through the means of the Tibetan tradition, and it's coming straight from the Indian teachings, then, we'll understand that actually what meditation is, there's two formal types of meditation, hundreds of techniques, but two formal types of meditation, two modes of meditation, two modes. But the first one, from the perspective of familiarization, you can almost argue it's not even meditation, but it's what we mean by, what the Buddhists would refer to is, in Sanskrit, shamatha, which is single. It's a type of single pointed concentration. The word is samadhi. That means concentration. So single pointed concentration is what we're trying to. So what we're trying to accomplish. This is a crucial technique that, from the Buddhist perspective, that to do the job that he says we're all capable of doing, which is unpacking and unraveling and deconstructing these complicated contents of our own mind, all our millions of thoughts and feelings and emotions, and making sensitive of all, and then eventually lessening all the neurotic ones and growing the good ones, speaking the most simple language. That's the job of being a Buddhist. In order to do that job really well and to really get really where you have to go, you need to have concentration. And it's sort of evident. I mean, from a simple point of view, this is really reasonable. If so, okay, that's the mode. So technically, that's not even the point of meditation yet. That's just to get the mind to a really subtle, focused, honed level of clarity so that it can do the real job in the second mode of meditation, which is the actual one where we do the work of unpacking and unraveling and deconstructing and sorting out and eventually ridding the mind of all the rubbish and perfecting all the goodness. This is the etymology of the word Buddha. Bud implies the utter eradication of all the rubbish in the mind. This is what Buddha's found to be true. Kind of radical. I mean, you go to your therapist and ask to get rid of all anger, all fears, all jealousy forever, and she'll think you're mentally ill and give you a pill. We don't have that view in modern psychology or neuroscience, but this is Buddha's view. And don't mystify it. Don't think it's religion and in the sky. This is practical psychology. The mind is Buddha's expertise. You can't argue with that. You mightn't like his expertise, but that's what his expertise is. So in order to do the job of unpacking and unraveling anything, if you have to work out mathematics, if you have to work out the cooking recipes, if you have to work out violin music, anything you learn, if your mind is all over the place, if you have no focus, you clearly can't achieve anything. You can't even hold any concept in your head if you've got no concentration. And that's what we mean also by mindfulness, the ability to not forget what you're doing moment by moment. If you really have not got that, that's what's called Alzheimer's. That's what's called dementia. You can't hold anything in your mind for more than a second. You have no short-term memory. That's the actual meaning of the word mindfulness. And that's what we need to cultivate along with concentration and attention and many other parts of the mind to bring it all to this laser-like focus when you've got samadhi, when you've got concentration, so you can do the job effortlessly of actually finally realizing emptiness, the ultimate mode of reality. So it's a necessary technique. This first one is absolutely vital. Now, I think in the world, mainly that's what people vaguely know as mindfulness, variations of it. And indeed in psychology, and that's okay, we're allowed to, we've made up many different definitions of it, which have extra bells and whistles on it that Buddhism doesn't use, but that's okay, but as long as you know what you're talking about. But don't assume because you hear the word mindfulness, it means Buddhism. It's not true. It's very simple. It's not being rude. So then that's a major misconception, that's what meditation means. So then the second mode, it's called, again in Sanskrit, vipassana. Now this throws us completely because that Buddha taught many kinds of vipassana. Vipassana literally means insight. And in English, I noticed in other languages, we had a course in Paris this weekend, and the word in French is really arcane, it's got very religious sounding, and many languages like that. So we fantasize these things. But insight in English, we know it's a great word. You say, oh, you're thinking of a problem and you're thinking your problem through, and then you go, oh, I got some insight into that problem. We know what that means. That means you've got some experience of what's not just intellectual, but experiential. That's what insight means. So we've got to have insight into what? Well, finally, in Buddha's teachings, into everything. We need to get insight into karma, insight into impermanence, insight into the way the mind works, insight into ultimate reality called emptiness. That's the final insight. That's called special insight. But that's the end result. That's the goal. The preparation is to have focus. You've got to have concentration. That's the point. You've got to have your concentration ready. Then the degree of your concentration, enables you to do the insight. And this is the interesting point too. Now, the method in insight meditation, when you're into that mode, the method you use to get insight into impermanence, to get insight into the laws of karma, to get insight in any of the philosophical positions in Buddhism that you're trying to study if you're a Buddhist, the method you use, and again, gets confusing to us, the Tibetans call it analytical meditation. Well, remember, the word meditation means familiarization. And now the word analytical is just a fancy word for the verb to think about it. So it's rather disappointing. Oh, I mean, I've just got to think about something. Oh, that's all, is it? Oh, I can do that. But the point is, when you've got good focus, you've got really good concentration, then your mind's laser-like, you can go to more subtle levels. And then to that degree, you can do really subtle, sophisticated analysis. And don't think that conceptuality is only at a gross level. The greatest yogis can use that at the subtlest, like a super sophisticated, subtle, refined level of analysis that's so quick. And what it does is trigger the insight. Oh, I get it. And that's a process. So a classical meditation session using both concentration and insight. Let's say you're going to meditate on impermanence. And Buddha's teachings, for example, are extensive on how things change moment by moment. For example, there's a type of, Buddha talks about subtle impermanence, and you can only cognize that, you can only realize that in subtle meditation. It's so subtle. So you need, to have the understanding of what it is. You go home, you've heard your teachings, you've been to your class, you come home, you've heard the teachings, it's fresh in your mind. Then you sit down and you get some focus. You do your concentration. You can use your breath, whatever you're going to use to get your mind to be focused. Now, before we even go further, this already is great. The benefits of mindfulness meditation, if you see it properly, are brilliant, because already you're calming your mind down. Already you're getting some clarity. Already you can even beginning to experience the taste of your mind. And the way they talk about that in Buddhism is our mind is naturally pure. So even calming your mind down a little bit with your breathing meditation has itself a bonus, but it's not the point. It's not the goal. It's just a bonus. So then a classic session would be you go home, you sit on your cushion, you're all organized, everything's organized, the door's closed, the kids are quiet, no one's jumping on top of you and shouting and yelling, and the music's not roaring. You've got a nice quiet environment, you do your concentration. You might do it for 5 minutes. You might just get your mind to a certain level of concentration that you've already accomplished. That's your concentration mode. Now what you do with that laser-like focus, you now bring it to the second mode. So what you do now is you bring into your mind what you just heard today. And please, you listen to this. This is exactly what you would do, but not so formally, if you've just gone to your music theory session. You've learned the latest theories from Bach or something, and you've got to go home. You sit down there, you've got your music written down, you've got all of these theories. You've got to get some concentration first. Okay, you mightn't call it meditation. You wouldn't sit cross-legged, but you'd close the door. You'd tell the kids to shut up. So you got quiet, you get your mind focused. Now the real work starts. Now you begin to do your homework. And that's all we'd call it, homework. But what the Buddha calls is getting insight into, in this case, impermanence. You're getting insight into violin music. Use the same words, please. Don't mystify this stuff. So the second mode is where you do the work. You're using your laser-like focus. So then you have to familiarize your mind with that music, familiarize your mind with those mathematics, familiarize your mind with the things that you're learning. Here, you're learning impermanence. So you use analysis. You think it through clearly, logically. Not thinking about it means just kind of you stir it around in your head and you go nuts. No, it's logical, coherent thinking. And you can't have logical, coherent thinking if you can't concentrate. It's pretty evident. So the logical, coherent thinking is ever more subtle as you get better and better. As you get more concentration, your subtle and your analysis is more subtle, more sophisticated. And then the insights will come more quickly. So an insight into impermanence is the end result of the analysis. Insight into emptiness, insight into impermanence doesn't mean somehow everything's impermanent, waiting for a little bell to ring. That's silly, You use your noggin, you use your logic, and then that'll trigger the insight. And then what do you do when the insight comes? It's like you get it, You hold that moment and you focus on that. And then when it weakens, You go back to your analysis again, and as you progress day after day, month after month, year after year, your concentration gets more subtle. You hear more teachings. Your insight your analysis gets more sophisticated, and eventually one day, when you got single point of concentration and you heard the teachings on emptiness, you've been meditating for years. One day, the direct, non-conceptual insight into the reality that there never has been, isn't, and never could be the fantasy eye. That's the subtlest insight. That's the special insight. So it's this gradual, incremental utilizing of these skillful tools to completely transform your mind into the mind of a Buddha. That's the use of meditation. And there are hundreds of types of these. This is the classic sutra one. Now, of course, we get confused when we think of all the tantric ones, all these visualizing, these weird, weird Buddhas. There's another whole method. But the goal is the same. The principle is the same, familiarization in order to radically change your mind. It's a gradual, ongoing process. But unfortunately, we hear it as meditation. We have so many conceptions about it. So the first misconception is that meditation itself is what means by mindfulness. No. The second misconception about mindfulness meditation, I think one of the misconceptions we have is that it's a relaxation technique. Now, if you go to George's classes, he's going to give you some beautiful relaxation techniques. I promise you, straight from yoga. They're brilliant. We need them badly. We need to relax. We need to settle down. We need to settle our body and our mind. This is wonderful. And if it ends up going to a nice sleep, go for it. But this is not the purpose of concentration. You could argue it's almost the opposite. You don't have to I think our problem is we're so addicted to feeling good. We desperately want to feel good. So we assume mindfulness meditation is to feel good. Well, that's really that's kind of not being rude, a bit infantile. We're so like junkies for good feelings. Nothing wrong with good feelings. Please get them. But that's not the purpose of concentration. It's like concentration meditation. Concentration, the first one, is you've got to make enormous effort not to allow the mind to go all berserk, not to follow all the berserk thoughts, because our tendency is to follow whatever arises in our mind, like a little bird, We have no ability to stay stable. So it's an enormously difficult job to do. I mean, even if you're very qualified, it could take you several years in the right conditions, which is up in the mountains, and you've given up sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's the right conducive condition to really get samadhi, to really get concentration. You need very particular conditions. And of course, eventually you'll be blissfully concentrated because your mind will be blissfully in control. But in the beginning, you're trying to herd all these cows. It's berserk, So I don't think just to relax is going to do the job. That is not concentration meditation. There are other techniques. Please ask George. He'll give you plenty. Go for them. This is not the purpose of mindfulness, Also, the other terrible misconception we have is we think of meditation in general as an alternative to a pill. Now, what does that imply? That implies you wait till you've got a raging headache before you take a pill. So we wait till we want to kill our boyfriend before we think we should do something about our mind. If you go to your therapist and say, I got a bit annoyed with George today, she'll tell you to shut up and go home and don't be so ridiculous, don't waste her time. But that is the time you should be dealing with your mind. When the little baby things happen, don't wait till you want to kill him. That's what we do. We leave it to too late. And this is a really, I would say, one of the major serious problems in our culture in relation to our view about spiritual practice in general and meditation in particular. We wait till we're having a mental breakdown. We wait till we're really fraught and despairing before we do something about it. And that is as foolish. I use a dumb example, but it's a really good analogy. It's like you've never heard of car mechanics, ever. And you've got this brand new gorgeous car and and you just drive it and you drive it and you drive it until one day on the freeway, you suddenly notice the wheels are falling off. You've never noticed any indication of it before because you've never paid attention. Well, we know no intelligent person would do that. The moment you're driving your car, you're conscious it's impermanent, you're conscious it could be going wrong, and you feel the slightest wobble, you go to the mechanic and fix it before it becomes a disaster. But that's how we should be with our minds. So don't wait till you're going crazy. But this is our trouble also because we're so addicted to good feelings, which is what happens when attachment gets what it wants. If you're in love with your boyfriend, everything's perfect, and someone says you should learn to meditate, you'll laugh at them. But why should I? I'm feeling good. That's the problem. You haven't noticed the wheels are wobbling, because attachment is a disaster area. So we've got to learn to work on our mind every day. Buddha says, don't just use these as curative, use them as preventative. And that's the Buddha's real skill, becoming in charge of your own mind. And that should be some practice we do every day. Don't just wait till you go crazy. It's too hard then. What can you do when the wheels are falling off at 100 miles an hour? Not much. Not much, I promise. Damage control is about your best. So you wait. So this is why I use the analogy, when the wheels fall off, is like when you wait, you just start to look at when the wheels are wobbling. Just an indication, slightly wrong. Well, in your day, when ordinary little things slightly go wrong, you get annoyed with George, you get upset with something, you get, that's the time to look at your mind, because they're the small levels of unhappiness. They're the small levels of aversion. Don't wait till you're screaming. It's really, I tell you, our biggest mistake, because we're junkies. We just want everything to be lovely. And if everything feels lovely, we think everything's perfect. And we exaggerate, because we all know things change. So we've got to get ourselves ready for when the wheels fall off. We've got to get ourselves ready for the dramas, because we all know dramas happen. I mean, nobody anticipated COVID-19 and all the consequences of it. And then that's why we can't handle it when it comes, because we're not ready. So the bigger view in Buddhism is, just learn to make practice part of your life as preventative. And then when dramas happen, because you've got more concentration and more awareness, you're able to navigate it without losing the plot, So skillful, I tell you. So it's not a relaxation technique. You'll be very relaxed when you've really got it. It'll be marvelous. You can't believe it. It's not an alternative to a pill. It's not just to make you feel good. And the other one, again, is indicating it's only when the dramas happen that we desperately think it's a method to make all the thoughts go away. And we think that's the criterion of success. Well, eventually, when you've got single point of concentration, yes. I mean, in Lama Yeshe's beautiful book, which I really recommend you read, it's the most marvelous book, called Mahamudra, and it's exactly these two modes of meditation. The goal, the insight we're trying to get is emptiness, and the method. But it's the two methods. It's a really beautiful book on meditation. Concentration meditation, the first one, but in Mahamudra meditation, the concentration object isn't your breath, but is the mind itself. It's very delicious, I tell you. And second, the insight is into the emptiness. Our emptiness of the self. It's more subtle, but it's exactly a description of the two modes of meditation. And it's a wonderful book. So in there, Lama talks about that was such a long sentence, I forget what I was going to say. Anyway, he talks about the qualities of concentration, the benefit of just samadhi. Amazing. You'll be blissed out. You can't believe how marvelous our mind has got the potential to be, But also he talks about how when you're learning to concentrate, the approach to dealing with all the crazy thoughts. Our problem is because we can't stand the crazy thoughts, and we think meditation is successful if they all go away. No, eventually when you've got concentration, as Lama Yeshe talks, your mind will be blissful, effortless, controlled, joyful. You can't imagine. It sounds like science fiction to us. When you read it, it's extreme. When Lama did this, he really tried to give us courage to know that our minds have this marvelous potential, and that's just from concentration before you do the insight, So, but he talks a lot in there about how to deal with when all the crazy thoughts are there, and that's the real skill we have to learn. It's quite a precise one. So let's just talk about that. You see, if we assume meditation is to relax and we'll lose the plot, we'll go to sleep. If we assume meditation is to make all the thoughts go away, we'll be very disappointed. We'll come out of the meditation very distressed. So it's a wrong assumption. It's a wrong expectation. That's not the point. So concentration, first of all, in Mahamudra, it's a bit, we'll do a little quick bit of it before we finish, okay? The typical one we all learn, which is a very good one, is using the breath as the object of concentration. You see, the mind, the way Lama talks about in this book is very lovely. He talks about, this is how they talk about, mind cognizes things, that's its job, like a mirror does. And a mirror reflects what's there, doesn't it? This is such a good analogy. This is our mind. We don't think it's like this. Our cognition, our awareness, it reflects like a mirror. Now, this is why the Lama talks in the book, when the mirror's dirty, or the mirror is cracked, think about that. Whatever's reflected is reflected in that aspect, isn't it? You could have the most perfect looking, beautiful thing out there, but if the mirror is cracked, it will look terrible. So the mirror is our mind. And the way Lama Zopa says, this is the way the mind functions in Buddhism. If we've got all the delusions in the mind, we've got anger, let's say, or there's attachment, let's say. So if attachment is in your mind, if your mirror is polluted by attachment, then the cake, the cake is the object out there on the plate, and your mind here, and it's polluted mainly by attachment. Then the cake, how do you think the cake will appear to you? As Lama Zopa says, whatever's outside appears back to us, appears in our mirror, appears back to us in the aspect of whatever's in our mind. So if your mirror is cracked with attachment, or is all shiny, we say you've got your rose-colored spectacles on. That's your attachment. So the cake, the attachment in the mind will cause the cake to look way more delicious than it really is. If you've got aversion in your mind for chocolate cakes, you just had 7 pieces and you'd vomit if you had more. Now you've got your aversion glasses on. Your mirror is cracked with aversion. Now the cake will look disgusting. This is how we live in samsara. This is how we're lured into samsara by our ridiculous states of mind, So, and of course, then we'll believe whatever we see. So then, okay. And the other one is when you're in meditation, concentration, as Lama talks, and the thing you're going to meditate on here, the focus you use, the object you use, is not the breath. And Lama Tsongkhapa says there's something very special about this object. And the object you're focusing on, and initially it's weird, is your own thoughts. Whatever pops up in your mind. Well, initially you try to do it and you'll see when we do it, you're almost like you can't find any thoughts. You think, what am I looking at? It's peculiar. You feel like you're drowning. It's very weird. But as your mind settles, you allow your thoughts to come and go. Now we know when you're very disturbed, you're agitated, you're upset about something. You can't calm the thoughts down. You're berserk, can't you? You feel like you're drowning in these thoughts. They don't feel like they're separate from you at all. And you're overwhelmed by them, and we believe the stories, which is why we go crazy. But the job to do is when the thoughts arise, don't think you wish they'd go away. What you're doing is you're using those thoughts as your focus. You're simply, as if one part of yourself very objectively is watching television, and television is your mind and all the activities. Now, normally, how are we with television? We're immersed in it. We're having opinions about it. How dare they do this? Look at what Mr. Trump is doing now. All those people shout, yell, scream. We go mad by the end of the news because we're involved in the story. Well, here, the awareness is not going to get involved. It's going to just simply watch like a hawk. Instead of the breath, you watch whatever arises in your ridiculous mind. No opinions. You have no discussion with it. You don't want them to be there. You don't want them to not be there. You just allow whatever pops up in your mind to pop up. This is a brilliant practice. And it's the first step in our daily life, for example. Instead of all the time involved in our crazy concepts and involved in everything that's going on outside, no wonder we're exhausted by the end of the day, all these opinions we're having. So no opinions, just watch. Just watch. So because the attention is staying focused, you're not getting distracted by all the crazy thoughts. You're not going like a little bird from pillar to post. So the attention is what gets stronger and clearer. And then because that starts to settle, then the thoughts have less power for you and they will begin to subside. I mean, don't hold your breath and wait for that. But eventually when you've got better concentration, that's what will happen, So it's a brilliant technique even in the daily life. You're walking on the street, you're just learning to see your mind, This is one of the techniques that Buddha teaches. He doesn't call it Mahamudra, but that's what it is. And then, of course, you don't just let it be that way. Now you've got to do analysis later at another time and know what to do with the anger and what to do with the attachment and what to do with the jealousy, because they're the misconceptions. But in Mahamudra, the concentration is just on whatever arises in the mind, And then, of course, the second component, the insight part, it's a very specific approach to realizing emptiness. It's quite, and we won't go there yet. Okay, we won't go there yet. Look, it's past already. My goodness. So ask me some questions about what I've said so far. If anything's been useful or sensible, or questions about it, please. I'd really like to ask you. I'd like to hear your questions.
I have a question, Venerable.
Yes.
I guess I just am curious. For lay people who aren't going to the mountains anytime soon, like what?
Some lay people do. Don't be surprised.
Yes. Yeah, but okay, for me, where in my life, I'm not going to the mountains anytime soon. So, and yet, I feel committed to these practices. So it's like, what's realistic, what's possible in terms of concentration, would you say? And how to develop that? Because I feel like as soon as, if I skip a day or 2 days or a few days, then it's like I'm back at square one. So
I understand. My feeling is really, it's a very simple answer and it's very logical and we shouldn't be depressed about it. But if you either decide you're going to commit to tennis like Roger Federer does. He sacrificed everything else. Now, we all honor him for that. We don't think he's a crazy guy. We didn't criticize him when he spent 8, 10, 12 hours a day since he's a boy playing tennis. Now, that's obviously the way to become the best tennis player. Would you agree with that? The more you don't do other things and the more you commit wholeheartedly to that activity, the better you'll be. Well, it's exactly the same here, sweetheart. Unless you came into this life with realizations from a past life, you can't expect to get single point of concentration by doing 10 minutes or 1 hour every day. Now, if you are already a highly evolved being, I remember hearing about one of Ramazopa's students who basically had bodhisattva realizations and was living with his old auntie who had cancer. Basically, he was this little old man taking care of his auntie, but he was a meditator because he had the ability already. So it doesn't mean you can't achieve something. So don't have false expectations, but don't be naive and think, you can try and get single point of concentration by doing it once a day, because it's impossible. Because this is the point, to have the proper conditions to get concentration that demands that you don't have anything else to think about. You can't live your life without thinking about other things. You'd die, wouldn't you? Because you would not go to the supermarket. You have this, we all have ordinary jobs to do, not criticizing. It's just how we are. It's how our lives are. Now, if you're so capable, like I said, you've already got advanced techniques, then you can use your hours. And so it's all a question of how far you've gone. That's the same with piano. If you come into this life, I look on YouTube, and some of these little children, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, you can't imagine the music they're playing. Clearly, they came into this life already pretty advanced. If you're like that, then no worries, darling. But most of us aren't like that. So we do what we can and be happy with the results, and don't and not expect more. It's foolish. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But the real one is having a discipline of a concentration meditation or any type of awareness, some kind of a meditation, morning and night. But the rest of the day is when you work also. You've got to work on your mind every second of the day. Everything that happens is grist for the mill. And you just slowly get better at noticing your thoughts and feelings during the day. So of course you can't notice your thoughts and feelings at a subtler level because we're still at the gross level. But if you've got concentration, you can learn to see your thoughts at a subtler level. So it's a practical issue, We do the best we can and delight. But the other point is this, Teresa.
However, Teresa is nice too.
What does your mummy call you?
Teresa.
Teresa, okay, I'll call you Teresa. So the other thing is, sweetheart, if you've got other aspects of a Buddhist practice, and I don't know if you have, but let's say in my case I have, then they've also, you've got to look at some of the practices that are very potent in the way, in the merit of them. So for example, doing a purification practice at the end of the day is an incredibly powerful practice. Someone says we're insane not to do this. And that's an analytical meditation where you go through the 4 steps, you're regretting the negativity, you have compassion, you do the purification, and they're really marvelous. They're analytical meditations in their nature. They're really delicious and tasty. Do you understand?
Yeah.
A great power for the mind. So we have to have a combination in a day. You understand? And because we've only got a certain amount, you be skillful. You use the techniques that are most useful, that are most beneficial for us. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay. What else, people? Anybody else have a question?
Hi, I have a question. What is an advice for resistance? I feel like when I joined the path and I started meditating, single pointed concentration came fairly easier. But the more analytical and the more insights I get, sometimes the resistance can come stronger.
Stephanie, that's an interesting point. I don't want to delve into your mind privately, but can you say a little bit more about that? Because it's very interesting. What do you mean, darling?
I just feel like the more I meditate, the more I concentrate.
So you mean you don't want to think about the teachings? That's what you're trying to analyze. Buddha's teachings about karma, impermanence, compassion, emptiness. You mean you don't like reading and thinking about?
No, I do. And I practice the Dharma even off the cushion during the day. I watch the impermanence and the subtlety of my thoughts, and I have seen or experienced the emptiness, and that's how it came to me first, before I even heard the first teaching. So I feel like the more, let's say, I meditate on emptiness or impermanence, I feel like somehow I'm attacked or something. Like I'm putting a lot of resistance that is coming, and I don't really understand like what is
Well, I don't know,
happening.
Stephanie. I can't understand either, but I got a sense if you are on track and you're doing what you think is the right thing, and you are following Buddhist teachings, you are working in your mind, you are trying to be an ethical person, then I think just be content and then don't get too worried about it and just give it a break, leave it alone. Don't build it up. I mean, the thing is, if you're saying to me you do nothing else but meditation, you don't do it in your life, and you don't think about it, then I'd say you're really attached and becoming a bit obsessive and give yourself a break, But it doesn't sound like that to me. So just be very wise, know what you're doing, and don't get attached. I mean, some people have the skill, like you're suggesting. I don't want to be too personal about you, but you're suggesting you've got a certain ability to meditate nicely. That means you've done it before. But the danger can be we can get very captivated by that and then and not do other things. So we've got to be very balanced in the different tools that we use. Be wise in the tools in our toolbox and use them appropriately, but don't get obsessed about one or the other. I'm not suggesting you are doing that, but that could be a danger, especially if you do something very well. We get a bit sort of attached to it.
Yeah, usually I just leave it alone and kind of go with whatever flow I need to go.
I think so, but also be reasonable, be intelligent, and apply the different tools at different times. Be wise about it. That's all. Be sensible, be wise, and remember the big picture, Stephanie. Remember where all this is heading. Don't get too caught up in the small details.
Thank you.
Do you understand, darling?
Yes.
Good. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Just keep moving, darling. Keep moving. What else, people? Anything else? It's really helpful. Thank you. So maybe we'll just do a little bit of meditation then. We'll just do a little bit of the first part of Lama Yeshe's Mahamudra. So we'll just get ourselves settled, first of all. So the sitting position, obviously in different traditions, they talk in different ways, but generally speaking, all the great meditators from all the traditions have it's a similar thing. And the point about the body is this: it's really important. The body needs to be in a conducive position, but because we're so attached to our bodies and our bodily experiences, we even think of meditation as a physical experience. And many people can sit and be very comfortable. And one of the dangers is you think, oh, I've got a very nice meditation just because you feel good. I'm sorry, that's really naive. That is not the sign of success at all. It happens to me, you can sit comfortably. Excuse me, it's just the body, but the body is important, okay? So there's about 7 or 8 points about the body. So let's just go through them, okay? Just to remember. And this is coming from all the great meditators over the centuries. They found the most conducive position. So the first one, ideally, all the great yogis say this. The yogis who can sit for days and days, the really greatest tantric yogis and others who are sitting in meditation for days on end, as mad as that sounds to us, they need to be in this position. And it's called the full lotus position because the body is incredibly stable. You can sit in days without toppling over if your legs are what they call full lotus. But also at a subtler level, apparently, all the subtler energies are all aligned very nicely, and the mind can work, the subtle mind can work very well. That's the long term. But as Holiness Dalai Lama said one time, that, it's really good to start your session, if you can, in the full lotus position, just for a moment. He said it's very auspicious for, kind of sows the seed for your ability to be able to do it in the future. So if you can, that's wonderful. If not, that's okay. And full lotus means each instep on the other thigh. Usually the right is in front of the left, if you can do that. But if not, don't worry. Now, that implies then you bottom. The next thing is you bottom. So clearly, if you've got very flexible legs and people who can do full lotus, usually you just need a cushion or something just to prop you up just under your coccyx. Then your body's got slightly thrusting forward, not a feeling of falling back. It makes it very stable. But of course, you've got to adjust this to the way your body is. If you can't do full lotus, do half lotus. If you can't do that, regular cross-legged. If you can't do that, please do whatever you can. Sit in a chair, I'm sitting in a chair. I tore the meniscus in my left knee. Actually, I was in New York last year, wasn't it? At George's house. I was in agony, wasn't I, George? Poor George put up with me. I can't tell you. I'm sorry to interrupt your meditation. I had torn the meniscus. I was on these 49 different drugs, and I couldn't sit for more than 10 minutes or lie down without agony. So I'd go to sleep like a drug addict. I had all these cocktail of pills to be unconscious. Poor George had to put up with me. I remember now. Thank you. Anyway, it's gone now, thank goodness. So I'm sitting in my chair, okay? So now, if you're sitting in a chair, this is really important. Do not slump into the chair. Hold your back up. If you're sitting cross-legged, if you slump, you fall over. Well, do not slump, because that makes all the subtle energies not aligned nicely, and it makes you go to sleep, you know. So hold up your own body, your feet firmly on the ground, for those of us in the chair. Now, the next point they always discuss is the back. Well, don't be tense. You know, we hold a lot of tension, especially if you're sitting upright. We immediately tense the shoulders. The fourth point is the back and the shoulders. So the back upright. Of course, the back isn't straight, it curls, but have it upright, not slumped. But as soon as we do that, you check. You tense your muscles on the shoulders. So relax your shoulders, the fourth point. But they don't mention it in the text. But look what we also do. We tense our abdomen. We tense all the muscles because we don't like looking fat. So hold your body upright, and now don't let your body collapse, but flop your muscles. Consciously flop your muscles. It makes a big difference. Flop your muscles, but the body upright. It's a really good combination. The fifth one is your hands. There's different mudras or gestures, but one we learn typically is the left underneath like this, and thumb right on top, thumbs touching. And I've heard somewhere ages ago, there's some subtle channels in the body that are related to bodhicitta that meet at the tips of the thumbs. So in your lap, otherwise just put your hands where you like, in your lap, don't worry. That's 6 things, I think, or 5. Now the next one is your head. It's the main thing. Oh, they're all the main thing. So your head slightly tilted forward, chin tucked in, just slightly. Otherwise, your head is thrust back, you get agitated again. Next one is your jaw relaxed. And oddly enough, your lips slightly apart, tip of the tongue behind the top teeth. And all the yogis have found over the centuries, it sounds so hilarious, that the reason you put the tip of the tongue behind the top teeth because it prevents you from dribbling. If you're meditating for hours, you want to dribble, you don't have to keep swallowing your spit. This really helps that, apparently. I think it's wonderful. Tip of the tongue behind the top teeth. Jaw relaxed, lips apart, and finally your eyes. Again, all the great yogis over the centuries, is they meditate day and night because they want their mind to be laser sharp. Then having light come into their eyes with the eyes open is really helpful because they're not distracted by the sensory objects because their minds are more subtle. But we don't have that level of concentration, so we probably get distracted. So have your eyes lightly closed. And your eyes are looking down as if you're looking along your nose towards the ground. Now that's the classic position. Just please settle into it, your bottom, your legs, your back, your hands, your shoulders, jaw, tongue, mouth, eyes. And then forget about it because it's your body. Your mind meditates, not your body. So settle into that position, please. Then next, now we're going to do the concentration meditation. And like I said, the object of our focus isn't the breath. It's something more subtle. It's going to be the mind itself. And what that means is quite simply, whatever thought pops up in your mind. But before we do that, let's just look at the pieces of the mind. The mind is not some unitary thing. It's got bits, you know. So the bit of our mind that's doing the watching, that really is just simply called attention. Pay attention. There's a part of your mind called attention, and that's the bit that does the looking. But it's supported by many other parts. It's supported by mindfulness, which is the ability to not forget what you're doing. And then another one, Dalai Lama calls it a policeman, that's even watching the mindfulness and watching the attention. And that's called alertness or vigilance. It's like the policeman checking all the bits of doing their job. There's many of our parts of our mind that we're not even conscious of because we haven't learned it yet. But these are all doing their bit. So attention is going to pay attention to this stream of thoughts that just constantly arise. We don't have to conjure thoughts. We know that. The habit is there. So there's endless thoughts that are always there. So we're going to just sit here now with determination for, let's say, 5 minutes. Let's see how the time is. 5 is good. 5 is quality, I tell you. For 5 quality minutes, and I'll remind you about every minute or so, but we're going to pay attention to whatever arises in our mind. So the point is this, you've got to pay attention. So of course you're going to wander off. Of course you'll launch into the conversation. Of course you'll start having new thoughts and forget what you're doing. This is the habit. But every time you catch yourself doing that, you bring the attention back to whatever's popping up. You just strengthen the attention. It's like you're trying to grow this weak muscle called attention, which is concentrated and mindful. Just watch the thoughts with strong determination. Stay very alert. Just keep the attention sharp, alert, not spaced out. Just watch. Just keep your attention sharp. No opinions, no conversations, just watch. Stay focused. Let the thoughts come and go. Just watch. So relax now. That's 5 minutes. Sometimes, if we're not if we haven't got very good concentration, it's far better to do 5 quality minutes than to do 20 minutes spacing out. And especially if you feel comfortable, that can be a real misleading thing. You're feeling comfortable, you know, that is not a sign of success. That is not a sign that your mind is focused. And that's one of the biggest things. Even they talk in the text when they describe this process of single pointed concentration in terms of 9 stages. And one of the big mistakes, even as you get more advanced, you can mistake this subtle dullness, they say, dullness for concentration. It's the biggest mistake. So even at the gross level, the commonest thing is some people can sit very comfortably and they really mistake that for concentration. It's just a misconception, that's all. You've got to get the best advice. It's really important. You have the right teachings, you know, it's so important. So that's the first part. Yes, Asha.
Hi. So what is the dilemma? I cannot seem to meditate with my eyes open, so I close them, and next
that's fine.
I'm falling asleep.
That's right. This is the trouble, Asha. This is, you say, okay, let's look at concentration meditation in more detail, Asha. This is the major thing. So the trouble is, even the way they describe throughout the entire 9 stages of concentration, it's described in terms of the constant, you know, adjusting between the capacity of the mind to be very busy and the capacity of the mind to space out. So that's our problem. Have the eyes open, we go berserk. Have the eyes closed, we go to sleep. So these are the 2 extreme examples, Asha, and we're very familiar with them. And that's how we live mostly in our lives. Emotionally, even, we're either busy and excited or we're depressed. Emotionally, we're like that. So this is the biggest danger. And this is exactly what we have to navigate in our attempts to get concentration, which is why it's useful even just to try 2 or 3 minutes and to make an effort to keep the mind alert. And that's why don't have your eyes open, have them closed, but make it, it's almost like, I mean, I know this sounds peculiar, but you'll understand it. When you're driving on the freeway, you know, there's no way in the universe you'll ever go to sleep. And if you do start to go to sleep, you're going to stop immediately because you'll kill yourself. So you're forcing yourself to stay alert, and you're not being distracted by all the cars. You see them out of the corner of your eye, but you're super sharp. And when you learn to drive, you can also be quite relaxed, but you're super alert. And that's what we're trying to get. Concentration is a combination of alert but relaxed. But you've got to get that first, and that's the difficulty. And these are the dangers, Asha, and this is the commonest one.
And the second question is, does it help to meditate just before sleeping because of all the things going on all the time, all the thoughts come at night?
Exactly, darling. No, it's really true. And I mean, in our tradition, you know, we do a practice that I mentioned it before briefly. We call it purification. And it's just a little kind of analysis you go through, checking up on your day. I mean, we know we have so many things in the day and we wonder why we're feeling stressed. Then we'll sit down and you check back on the day. Well, 11 o'clock, I got mad at my son. And you've been holding on to it all these hours. You didn't realize. So it's a good thing to check your day. And then you think, oh, I regret those ridiculous things. You sort of clean yourself up. You regret the rubbish you've done and said. Then you think, because you're sick of the suffering. Then you have compassion. Then you do a little practice or a little meditation. And then you can make a decision to change. And then you go to bed with a happy mind. It's very helpful. Or just even doing a quiet meditation. It's very practical, yes.
Thank you.
It really is, yes. Yes, absolutely. What else, people? Anything else? Any thoughts? Questions? No. Well, look, it's 4 more minutes, 6 more minutes. I could fill the 6 minutes with something.
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Good. Go,
Hi, I'm calling in from my car.
Oh, good. Okay, wonderful.
But I saw you last year and I did not want to miss your wisdom again. So thank you
Lily,
for
good.
this. I have a group I meditate with, and they do 40 minutes. And I find that, you know, not easy. Sometimes I think, oh, that was good, or oh, that I judge my meditation.
I understand.
But you just did 5 minutes. And so is it better to do a smaller meditation starting out?
Exactly, Lee. So first of all, I think if it's a meditation, let's say, on visualizing a Buddha, I don't know what kind you do, then you could do more than 5 minutes. You mightn't have much concentration, but there's so much benefit in those different thoughts and saying the mantra and thinking this and thinking that. It's not a concentration technique, but that's a really good one. That could be 20 minutes and that's nothing wrong. But if you're trying to do concentration and we're like Asha, most of us, we've got not much control, then struggling with 40 minutes trying to meditate, trying to concentrate when maybe 90% of it you're just spaced out. You just have to accept there's no benefit. Now, I mean, it depends, but if you're a Zen center, Zens have a very different approach. They just say, sit there and sit through the misery. So it all depends on which one you're trying to do, and it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, Lee. So, from that perspective, we did a whole retreat with Lama Yeshe, this is years ago, and he made us do 5-minute sessions. He said, for concentration, it was Mahamudra, 5 quality minutes of really paying attention, really adjusting your mind can be far better than 40 spacing out. So it's all a question of what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, I don't think I've defined what I'm trying to accomplish. So thank you.
Keep searching, baby. Keep checking, Lee. Keep working. Sounds great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, darling. Well, I think it's time to go. Just an hour gone so quickly. And maybe I'm on again, I think, this evening for another class. What's my class, Nick, this evening, Teresa?
Yeah. So we'll have you tonight. Let me just pull up the name of the class. So tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time, the teaching is on less drama, more dharma, which I love that title. So that's going to be from 7 to 8:30.
Okay, good.
I'll go ahead and post the link.
Yes.
So that people can check that out, and you'll be teaching with us for the rest of the week, including a long weekend teaching.
Fantastic.
So you can check that out, and I will also.
And you'll send me the link for tonight, or have I got it already? I can't remember.
We'll make sure that you have it.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody.
Go ahead.
Just one little hour, we've finished, and may our motivation, may it happen as we motivated, so that we all do develop our amazing potential, so we can be a benefit to others. May that happen. Jang chob sem chog rinpoche ma kie panam ke guching kie pan yampa me pa yang gong ne gong du pelva sho. May compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. Thank you, sweethearts. So kind. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.